What hasn't been discussed nearly as much is the legal view here, and of course that's where we come in, where we believe we have some expertise. And when we looked at the statute over a period of time, we became convinced that the EPA does not have the authority, the legal authority, to reduce the standards that were enacted by Congress. And like a lot of legal issues, it's somewhat complex, but basically the statute gives the EPA the authority to change the targets or the goals for a variety of reasons. But the one that's crucial here is the term inadequate domestic supply. That they could change the standards when there's inadequate domestic supply. And what we see is that there's really is and will be adequate domestic supply, that there's of course a huge amount of corn, there are plants that are in operation and are being built. There really isn't any great suggestion that the farmers and the plants cannot produce the ethanol that's specified in the standards. What the EPA has said is that there's some that's an ambiguous term. And so they're allowed to do some interpretation. And their interpretation is that not only is that standard talking about the supply of ethanol, it's talking about the distribution of it throughout the system. And while certainly there are some questions about the distribution at the higher level, that's not really what the statute is talking about. We go through in our comments and say that when the Congress wanted to consider both supply and distribution, they say that. They use both terms. And indeed, the key term here, originally the House had supply and distribution, and then the Senate struck the reference to distribution. So that our view of the law is that the EPA is using the wrong standard. The sole standard should be the supply of ethanol itself, which is not in peril of not being produced in the amount that is set forth in the law. So we think that this is the correct interpretation of the law. We think that it's important for us to weigh in on this issue, and we're doing that today.
What's your next